Isn't Megan Rapinoe just the absolute worst? She had just retired in total, utter disgrace. Oh, I got injured by final game. Oh, that means that God isn't real. Au contraire, mon frere. I do believe that in fact confirms the existence of a great overseeing ethereal being, if you'd ask me. But then again, I don't want to gloat, but I've never found a picture that is far more appropriate for somebody if you just simply look at the framing, okay, of her chin and what is right next to it, okay? I'm just saying, in a year of crazy news stories and a number of insufferable athletes, Megan Rapinoe, for probably like the 5th consecutive year, is easily the most insufferable, but she's got to go ahead and she's got to go and land one final parting blow to her former employer. I couldn't imagine being this ungrateful, just being this spiteful and bitter with everything that you do. Listen, I've worked a fair share of shitty jobs, but for her to have the audacity to claim that playing soccer, playing a child's game for the United States women team, the worst job in the world, okay? I've worked warehouses, I've worked retail, I have been paid money to get splashed in the face with 2,000 PSI water hitting frozen dirt at 50 fucking below. But her bitching, moaning, whining, and complaining to get paid more than her male counterparts because we deserve equal pay. That's the worst job in the world. I'm sure that there's some fucking kid over there picking gold out of fucking recycled electronics in China who can go, yeah, Megan, I can sympathize with you. Fucking entitled bitch. Just terrible, man. A new Netflix documentary. Former professional women's soccer player Megan Rapinoe claims that playing for the women's national team was the worst job in the world. Okay, then turn in all your USWNT bitch soccer. Turn in all of your previous paraphernalia, all of your awards. If it was so bad, you would not want to be reminded of any of that stuff, right? Just go ahead, turn in your accolades. Don't use that as a resume stuffer anymore. Just simply go out there into your retirement, okay? And just market yourself on your own effusive personality. I always say it's the worst job in the world because if you do your job, then you were supposed to, and if you had done one hair less, then you were going to get lambasted for it. Unfucking believable. Imagine that. You don't put in 100% effort, and could you imagine if you don't do the job that you're hired for, your boss will get mad at you. Oh, poor baby. That if you show up late, that if you don't want to participate in the team activities, people will get mad at you, and that's bad. Fuck you. Rapinoe said in the documentary series Under Pressure, the U.S. Women's World Cup team, the Washington Examiner reports. I hadn't even heard about this documentary, which just lets you know how popular, quote-unquote popular, women's sports is in general. 2023 saw the women's national team lose out on the FIFA World Cup, not even placing in the top 3. In one match, Megan Rapinoe missed the penalty kick. Yeah, that was funny. Man, that was just this year, huh? A women's national team had placed in the top 3 every single game, or every single tournament? I guess that'd be a little bit more appropriate. Since 1991. I was but a wee lad at that point in time. Taking home the cup in 91, 99, 2015, and 2019, according to NBC Sports. At the beginning of the World Cup, she spoke out in favor of men being allowed to play in women's sports team. This is why you never, ever, ever deal with woke fucking idiots even once. Leftism, not even once, my guy, because she's going to go ahead and she's going to take advantage of the system while she's there, just like every other thought. And then on her way out the door, when she's aged out, timed out, hit the wall hard enough, she's just going to go ahead and pour dirt on the system that brought her up to begin with, because who the fuck is Megan Rapinoe outside of soccer? Just an insufferable pink-haired bitch that nobody would pay attention to. But she's a soccer player. She's won awards. People will listen to her, actually endure what she has to say, simply for the fact that she's been with a team for a while. I don't even know if she was like any good or not. Maybe she was. I don't want to take that away from her. I'll leave that up to God tearing her Achilles tendon in the final game of her career. because that shit's great. But for her to be one of the most highly regarded athletes, for as much as you can say women are athletes or real athletes, but no, we'll just go ahead and suppose the premise, okay? For her to do all that stuff and then just open up the door for lesser male athletes to come over, put on a wig and stuff their training bra. Yeah, it's something. It's something where, if there was some honesty in the league, the rest of those chicks that you used to call teammates would go, "What the fuck you doing? We already have enough problems dealing with the, retired over 55 men's teams and the U16 boys." They're not men yet. Teams that are out there beating the brakes off of us, making us look so fucking foolish. But we deserve equal pay, right? And with her insufferability being put back on display, let's go over one of her greatest accomplishments and see if there's any validity to the whole equal pay gimmick. Because I've always been under the impression that, female sports doesn't draw any attention, isn't profitable at all, and that it's a lesser version of varsity sports. But maybe that's just my biases kicking in. U.S. Women's National Team, U.S. Soccer Federation settle equal pay lawsuit for $24 million. That's a common misnomer with this situation. They didn't win in a court of law. They just simply settled with U.S. Soccer, okay? Women didn't end up proving that we're not getting paid equally. They just simply struck a settlement for $24 million, where in the grand scheme of things, the men's team will just go ahead and pull that in, even if they end up finishing 64th at the fucking World Cup. Players from the United States Women's National Team have settled their class action equal pay lawsuit against the United States Soccer Federation for a total of $24 million. The two sides announced in a court filing on Tuesday. And settling the suit, the players will receive a lump sum payment of $22 million. This amount will be distributed in a manner proposed by the USWNT players and approved by the district court. U.S. Soccer will also pay an additional $2 million into an account to benefit the women's national team players and their post-career goals and charitable efforts. Well, yeah, you're paying female athletes. Isn't that a charitable effort in and of itself? Related to women and girls soccer. Exactly, but I need not be redundant. Each player will be able to apply for up to $50,000 from this fund. Fantastic stuff. That more than triples their salary, I'm sure. But okay, that's the settlement. Now I want to go to PolitiFact, because they couldn't even end up covering up for this fucking bullshit. Does the U.S. women's soccer team bring in more revenue, but get paid less than men? Because that was at a cornerstone of their claim. The United States women's national soccer team recently won the Women's World Cup for a fourth time. This is an article all the way back in 2019 when they ended up launching the initial lawsuit that ended in a settlement some 3 years later. But the team's compensation remains a subject of considerable controversy. Well, I can just tell you, first and foremost, okay, because that 2019 World Cup, I had a friend who went to it, okay, and drove to it because it was in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, at the old dilapidated Commonwealth Stadium that's there. I've been there a few times. It's definitely a stadium in the middle of a shitty part of town, but it is definitely there. And the fact that it was here, the World Cup was in northern Alberta, and nobody gave a fuck about it, that should just let you know about the popularity of women's soccer in 2019. But okay, that's just a simple anecdote. Maybe the women ended up pulling in more money than the men. The previous World Cup. The previous World Cup that was watched by over 1 billion people? Yeah. Interesting. Chance of equal pay erupted after the team's victory in the Netherlands and during its triumphant victory parade in New York City. I guess that would have been the 2015 World Cup that was up here. My mistake, the 2019 one was far more popular, right? The women's team sued the United States Soccer Federation, its parent organization, in March over gender discrimination that followed a wage discrepancy complaint in 2016. Oh, okay, cool. So off the back of their other victory, quote unquote, with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, weeks after the team filed the lawsuit against U.S. Soccer, 35 senators called for equitable pay for the team in the letter of the U.S. Soccer Federation President Carlos Cordero, Elizabeth Warren, Joe the Bitch Manchin. Let's see what Sacagawea had to say about this first. The United States Women's National Team is #1 in the world and contributes higher revenues from U.S. Soccer than the men's team, but they're still paid a fraction of what the men earn. Women deserve equal pay for equal or better work in offices, factories, and on the soccer field. I agree. They just don't provide that. Again, they got beat by boys. They got beat by retired men. They got beat by a fucking crossbar. They're terrible. They're trash. So yeah, PolitiFact running all their shit. So bottom line, here's what we found. During the 3 years, okay, taking a look specifically at the 3 years following the 2015 Women's World Cup, the women's team brought in slightly more revenue from games than the men's team did. Let's just go ahead and dissect that a little bit. Okay, slightly more. That's a big concerning point there. From games, individual games, is that what we're looking at right here? And what's your metric that you're using? But okay, we'll go ahead and accept that. Well, marketing and sponsorships are sold as a bundle. There are anecdotal signs that the women's brand is surging in popularity. For as many diminishing adjectives as they wanted to apply to that, they just went and bolstered that. Oh, don't worry, guys, it's going to become popular eventually. In the follow-up, PolitiFact never change. However, it's harder to say whether the women are ultimately paid less than the men. Oh, interesting. Due to the lack of transparency and the complicated variables that feed into our compensation. But any day now, hey, man, they ended up making more. How do you prove that? What's your source? I made it the fuck up. Several experts said the reality may be murkier than they shouted catchphrase can capture. While Warren is 100% right that the women's national team is #1 in the world. Not for long. The economics portion of her tweet is more complex than the tweet suggests. Wow, imagine that. Elizabeth Warren lying about numbers? Who would have ever thought? Like, that's an occasion that only happens once every 1,024 days. And the accuracy of her depiction depends on measurement tools that aren't noted in the tweet, said Michael McCann, a University of New Hampshire law professor who specializes in sports law. So just taking a look at the revenue streams, apparently. When the Wall Street Journal audited the Federation's financial reports, it found that the U.S. women's soccer games earned more than the men's games in total during 3 years after the women's team won the World Cup in 2015. Interesting. Okay. Specifically from 16 to 18, the women's team brought in $50.8 million in revenue, while the team brought... Not even dealing with a full $900,000. How many games did the men play? I'm just wondering in contrasting. Okay, so you have an entire World Cup fallout. Okay, you got the World Cup fallout for the women's team. Did the men, how many games did the men play? I'm just wondering. If that's one game as compared to like the few dozen, that would be funny. Looking year by year, 2016 was actually the only year in which the women's team generated more revenue from games. $24.11 million. I thought they were going to, list out individual ticket costs compared to $22.24 million from the men. Wow, an additional $2 million in 2017. Both teams brought in the same revenue, 14.61 in 2018, and the men's team brought in 13 compared to the women's 12. Pattern marked a reversal from prior years. In 14 and 15, the men's team earned 8.3 and 11.71 more than the women's teams, respectively. Holy fuck. Holy fuck. But the bitches want to go ahead and focus in on the 3 years where actually we were pulling our fair share. So, you know what? We want to get paid more for our work, even though it's not even close to being equal. But that's what you get, man. That's why you never give them an inch, because they will be ungrateful about the mile that they end up taking from you. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.